Hello, everybody. Welcome to Bayou Bets. It is Thursday, November the 9th, 2023, and we got all kinds of stuff to talk about as we prepare for NFL Week number 10, college football Week number 11. A reminder before we get started that Caesars Sportsbook is the official odds partner of bet.nola.com, and we ask you very nicely, politely, the most polite way possible to subscribe to the Bayou Bets YouTube channel, where you can always find out what is going on and when we are on the air live. Spencer, what is going on this afternoon?
Hey, how's it going, Jim? Good, man. Just excited for this weekend. A lot of big games and got some action tonight. My Raging Cajuns in action against Southern Miss. So,
oh, man, that's why you're representing.
Right. Yeah, it was game day today. I remember right before the show, I was like, let me change my shirt, get my Cajuns gear on. Say, I got to support my alma mater.
Well, we are on early today. I have some things going on this evening that I need to take care of, so we had to start the show an hour early, and we hope it's okay with you. If not, as always, and some of you may be watching this on demand as we speak, so I'm talking to you. Hello. Sorry we can't talk live, but it is what it is. All right, today's topics. Can the Saints stop the NFC Player of the Week on offense? Joshua Dobbs, the almighty Josh Dobbs. Can they do it? We're going to get into that in a little bit. LSU is looking to rebound after their quote-unquote dream crusher loss. The Alabama Crimson Tide, they host Florida on Saturday night, where they are just shy of a 2-touchdown favorite. We're going to get into that. We'll briefly talk about Tulane hosting Tulsa, along with the marquee matchups of the week, which include Penn State against Michigan, Ole Miss against Georgia. I couldn't fit it on there, but our top NFL play. There's a couple of them, really, but we picked Baltimore and Cleveland, although you can make an argument for San Francisco and Jacksonville. We will be talking about that because it's in a lot of our big bucks picks. Uncle Big Nick said he's missing Maury. He's missing Maury for us. I mean, dude, really? I mean, come on. All right, big bucks and turkey of the week will be announced in just a little bit. All right, first we're gonna start off with the Saints. Spence. Big game this week. NFC Offensive Player of the Week is Joshua Dobbs. He just jumped into that fire and burned the Atlanta Falcons, and now the Saints have to face them and the 8th-ranked Vikings offense. However, this is not the same offense that has made Minnesota the 8th-ranked offense in the NFL.
Right, yeah. So the Saints could get bailed out here because it is true that Minnesota is very banged up on offense, but not really confident that the Saints are going to be able to take advantage of that because the Saints defense has really struggled lately. I mean, they struggled against the Colts, struggled against the Bears, neither offense of which is as good as Minnesota's. And I know they're banged up, but Josh Dobbs is a very solid starting QB. He's not a superstar, but he's not going to screw it up. And he can make plays when needed, especially with his legs. And the Saints have struggled against mobile QBs. So I think Josh Dobbs will eventually come back to earth, but I think he could carry over that momentum from last week into this week and give the Saints some problems.
How do we know he's not going to screw it up?
I just like his track record of being a smart game managing kind of quarterback, and he's someone that he's not. Admit it, he's not a superstar. I'm not saying he's going to repeat his performance from last week, but the bottom line is the Saints struggle against those kind of quarterbacks, and the reason I'm not confident in them fixing is because they seem to be a team that makes the same mistakes and doesn't do a good job of fixing them. Maybe they'll prove me wrong, but I'm just not confident.
We're going to make our final Saints picks at the end of the show when we get to after big bucks and everyone is on the screen. We'll ask everyone what they think about Saints-Vikings. Look, I think this is a great spot for the Saints. And I know, look, people have been on me throughout time for being Derry Downer, and then when I say I think they're doing okay, then I'm riding the magic carpet. And I've got it from my own friends on Facebook. I mean, which is it? Am I too negative or am I too positive? I mean, maybe I'm just bipolar. I'm not sure what it is, but I think this is a great spot for the Saints. I really do. They're going to a place where although they haven't been successful in Minneapolis, in fact, they haven't been successful at all. They're 4-16 lifetime there, including the 2 playoff games. We don't want to bring that up. We'll just depress everyone. But they're playing a quarterback in Josh Dobbs that, look, the guy's got 1 NFL victory as a starter in his entire career. He's on his 5th NFL team in a year. in a calendar year. This is the 5th different NFL team. There's a reason for that. It's not because he's okay. It's a fine backup if you need someone, but they got him for a song from Arizona for nothing. And so to expect him to be able to duplicate what he did last week is a little bit highly unlikely. Let's put it that way, especially with the fact that the Saints have a full week to prepare for him. And the Saints don't have a slouch defense. They're 7th in the NFL in defense, 7th in the NFL in passing defense. So I think it's a reason if you're a Saints fan to be confident. But you know what? Mark Zatanovich wants to ask you a question, Spencer. He says, can the Raging Cajuns beat Southern Miss tonight on ESPNU? That's what he wants to know. He doesn't care about the Saints. He just wants to know.
I definitely think so, Mark, because, last week they took an L, but I think they're going to bounce back this week. Being at home, and Southern Miss is really down this year. They have struggled mightily. So this is one the Cajuns better win if they want to have any shot at a decent bowl, and I think they will. I don't see them slipping up in this spot.
Cody's excited, man. See, you just bring it up, and people are go Cajuns. They're all fired up. Mark also asking about whether it be Nick Mullins or Josh Dobbs. I think it's already been
Dobbs.
Announced.
It's Dobbs.
Yeah, it's already been announced that it's Josh Dobbs. We wouldn't been talking about all this. So I hear your point of view, and I get. Look, I'm going to say this as well. I completely get why Saints fans would be going into this week apprehensive and not being able to trust this team. You can't trust this team. I get that. And I get why, my son came over last night, and Lord knows he's said some things over the recent past, but, the Saints are going to get killed. They're going to get destroyed. And I get that is the common theme because it's the Vikings and whatever. The Saints haven't always played well there. Josh Dobbs was great last week. Yeah, but there's a difference, Spencer, between jumping into the fire and doing well and pulling people out and not thinking about it and just doing it, than seeing that fire from a distance, running into it, and then jumping into it. There's a big difference.
Yeah, you got a point there, because I feel like it'll be one of those games. It'll be kind of back and forth. There'll be times where Saints will probably have the momentum and it'll look like they're on track. But I just feel like in Minnesota, I feel like Kevin O'Connell coached teams, they tend to find a way. And Josh Dobbs, he's been in a lot of different spots. But remember last year with Tennessee, he started some games, and they weren't that great. But the
Tennessee Titans, okay. Not the Tennessee Vols.
Yeah, they're the Titans. Yeah, he was involved. But, and then with the Cardinals this year, to me, the wins loss thing's deceiving because he was set up for failure there this year. The Cardinals, they weren't expecting to contend, and they didn't really you can make a case that they were tanking, where you can't really blame Josh Dobbs for that. And when you look at his statistics, he's no Pro Bowler, but he's very solid. It wasn't his fault the Cardinals were losing all those games. And I feel like with the proper supporting cast, he's no slouch here. He's not as good as Kirk Cousins, but he's not like a dramatic drop-off. He's definitely a lot better than if it would have been Jaron Hall, which was there. They'd have definitely lost to Atlanta. There was a blessing in disguise that Jaron Hall got knocked out of that game. Because maybe Josh Dobbs was the reason they came back and won.
Maybe Jaron Hall actually was playing well before he got knocked out of that game. And, who's to say? Atlanta is going to do Atlanta things. They're not known for allowing teams to come back. It doesn't just happen every now and then. It happens a lot. And Falcons going to do what they do. One thing that I find interesting about this game, if you're just looking at pure matchups, and we like to talk about this time of year, the Saints have been, when you add up the total number of rankings, it's 13 plus 7 for the Saints is 20, 14 plus 8 for the Vikings is 22. So theoretically, the Saints should be just slightly better. They're pretty much on par. We do that each week. That's kind of how you come up with a line. So in this instance, Spencer, just going to show how much different the odds makers think these substitutes are having on this Vikings team, because really the Vikings should be a slight favorite. Instead, it's the other way around. And this has actually been trending towards the Saints. It's been 2.5 for most of the week. The Sharps are starting to bet the Saints a little bit. I think saying they're pounding the Saints would be a little bit much, but there is definitely money being put down on the Saints this week. And I think that is probably because I think they're starting to realize Justin Jefferson's probably not going to play.
Right, yeah, it's almost a certainty that he won't play. And I can see why the Sharps are leaning that way, because when you look at it on paper, I admit the Saints should win this game on paper. I mean, because they're the healthier team. This year, the Saints, the past few years, fans have complained, the medical staff is not healthy. The team's not healthy. Well, you can't say that this year. This year, pretty much the entire starting 11 on both sides is healthy. So health isn't the concern here. To me, it's just it's coaching and just that it's hard to really put a specific describe. But that's just closing out games. They struggle closing out games. And I just feel like the Vikings are a team that even though they're kind of banged up, they've consistently been able to close out games, especially under Kevin O'Connell. Their record in close games under him is extremely good. So we'll see how it goes Sunday, but I'm just going with the track record of these teams under their current head coach. And to me, the Vikings have even though their talent's a little lacking at the moment, their coaching to me is superior.
Well, I'll tell you what, I agree with you on the O'Connell part of it all, and I like Kevin O'Connell. I think he's a good young coach, but I'm disappointed as an NFL fan of what Brian Flores has done with his defense because they're 14th in defense, but they haven't been very good against the pass, and I think that Derek Carr really has a chance to kind of exploit some weaknesses in that Vikings defense this weekend. We'll see if he can. He had thrown for 300 yards, 3 weeks in a row, and then last week's kind of pedestrian. But they got to get, last week was kind of a Taysom game. I think Derek Carr needs to be a big part of this one.
Yeah, for sure. If Derek Carr can take advantage of the Viking secondary, which I think he'll be able to do at times. But the past 2 weeks, he got extremely soft matchups, the Colts and the Bears. The Vikings defense is much improved this year. I mean, because last year the Vikings were a bottom tier defense. I mean, last year it was because of their offense. Justin Jefferson had that great season. Where this year, I mean, Flores, they're not a great defense, but he's definitely gotten them better. They're definitely a lot better than last year to where I feel like Carr could have a little bit of trouble, especially with the Vikings pass rush being really good. Daniel Hunter, one of the top pass rushers in the NFL, I feel like he could give Andres Pete some trouble. I know Pete's been pretty good at the left tackle spot the past few weeks, but we all know Andres Pete. I mean, he's no Pro Bowl offensive lineman, where I think this Vikings front could be a little bit of a problem.
Well, that will most certainly be one of the matchups to watch. And there was a lot of talk this week about Andres Pete because, frankly, we thought that he would move back to guard instead of playing tackle and have James Hurst go to tackle. But Dennis Allen decided not to do that, and Pete Carmichael, they decided not to do that, and it's worked out so far. But you're right. Let's see what happens when a solid pass rusher goes against him. It's going to be an interesting be one of those matchups that we'll certainly watch going forward. Look, I just think this is a good matchup. We will give our final predictions on the Saints again later in the show. If you want to comment, leave your prediction or what you think, or if you disagree with us or agree with us or whatever it is, leave your comment in the comment stream. We'll show it here on the show. If you're watching on YouTube or Facebook, if you're watching on Twitter or X or whatever you want to call it, we can't see it on there, but you can still leave a comment if you want. We'll just go look at it later. So we're going to move on and come back to the Saints in a little bit. Spencer, I want to talk about LSU. And we kind of talked in pre-production about last week being kind of that quote-unquote dream crusher game. That's when you still have all of your hopes in front of you. And I think even though LSU with 2 losses, they could have psyched themselves out to believe that maybe some kind of long shot way they could have found a way into that national title game. They could at least certainly that they would have controlled their destiny for the SC title game had they won that game. Now all that's over. Jayden Daniels is not going to win the Heisman, even though I think he still deserves it. That's a whole different story. That's why this game is so intriguing, because LSU, if they play LSU football and the football they've been playing, we don't even know if Jayden Daniels is going to play as we go into this. But at 13.5, I think if LSU plays LSU football, they are clearly 2 touchdowns better, especially at Tiger Stadium, than Florida. But we don't know what team's going to show up.
Right. Yeah, that's that makes a lot of sense, because I feel like if they're playing right, they'll cover this, but I'm not really confident that they will be, because coming off that Bama loss it is demoralizing. I mean, you had everything in front of you, and you lose Jayden Daniels during that game. You get your defense just completely stinks. And I know Gabe went on his rant Monday. about not firing the defensive coordinator. So it's probably going to be a lot of the same mistakes on defense. I think Jaden will play. I feel like since he's back practicing, he should be able to clear concussion protocols and be ready. So I think the offense will do enough for LSU to still win this thing, but I definitely wouldn't lay to 13.5 because the LSU defense is so bad, and Florida's got a decent enough offense to, I think, keep this thing close.
I'm not saying whether he will play or won't play, but I hope they don't rush the kid back. If he's not ready to play, if he's got concussion symptoms at all, and I'm sure there's a doctor there that will probably give the final yay or nay. But and I know that teams are a lot better today than they were even in the recent past. But to me, you're playing with fire if he's even kind of not ready. The fact that he spent so long in the tent against Alabama really concerns me. I mean, he was basically in the tent the entire final quarter and a half. When the game was over, he was still in the tent. So why was he still in the tent? I mean, that's crazy. So again, I hope they monitor him well. Is there a reason for Jaden Daniels to even play? I mean, another topic we talked about in pre-production, but he's got a bright future ahead of him. I think he's clearly an NFL quarterback. I think he has a good chance to be a starter in the NFL. I think that he's trending towards being a bottom first round, maybe even middle first round pick, depending on how the rest of the year goes. But we see quarterbacks also in the combines move themselves. You saw what Anthony Richardson did this time last year. Anthony Richardson wasn't supposed to be a first round pick, and he ended up moving into the top 4. I think Jaden Daniels could do something similarly. What do you think about that as far as Jaden Daniels potentially, should he play or not play?
Yeah, that's an interesting point, and I agree with you. Unless he's truly 100% that he shouldn't play, because this game you should be able to win it. I know you being the great Nuss, so he should be able to win it with Nuss. To where Nuss is a very solid backup. To where I think unless Jaden is truly 100%, that they'll end up going with Nuss. You never know with concussions. I feel like though, most of the time, unless it's a severe concussion, which I didn't realize he had spent that much time in the tent. With that factored in, I think he might end up missing it. I didn't realize that it was probably a more severe concussion than I realized, but hopefully not. Hopefully he's ready to go, because I know he wants to play. He's a gamer, Jaden Daniels.
Oh, there's no doubt about that.
He wants to go and do what he can to help this team win 3 straight, and if they win 9 games, should go to a really good bowl. So it'll be interesting to see. But
while we've been on the air, Gabe tells us the line has moved, and because I checked it literally right before we went on the air, it was the last thing I checked before we went on the air. LSU is now a 14-point favorite. So for it to move that significant half a point tells us that that's a big move from 13.5 to 14, and now the over under also 64.5. So the number you see on the screen has already changed. And once it gets to 14, it's probably not going back down. That is such a major threshold. So the bettors think that LSU is going to win big. And I honestly, I'm the opposite, Spencer. If I wouldn't bet on this either way, I don't think it's worth betting. There's too many different factors that can change what can happen here. But I think even if Nussmeier plays, I think that I think and Uncle Big Nick's being funny. There it is. Nuss is starting, and that's what moves the line. I mean, he's being completely facetious. But I think LSU wins big no matter who plays, if they can get last week behind them. And I think they will. I think good, well-coached teams get that stuff behind them, and I think they will. So it'll be an interesting game for sure. All right, let's just touch on Tulane. They play Tulsa at home this week, 11 a.m. start. One of the things we talked about in pre-production, more, I think, bigger than this game. We'll get to what we think about the game in a minute, but you were bringing it up, and I thought it was worth putting on the screen here in the graphic. The American Athletic Conference futures. SMU is now leapt in front of Tulane, which I think is interesting, because if Tulane wins out, and I think they will, they're favored to win out for sure. Obviously, this Tulsa game, then it comes down to whether they can beat Texas San Antonio. But the game would be at Yulman Stadium, where Tulane would most certainly be a favorite. I think there's value in the green wave here.
Yeah, I was thinking they would have been favored. I was just going through all the conference futures today, and that caught my eye that, like, wow, Tulane's not favored, I guess, because I'm guessing SMU has a couple of easy ones left, and where Tulane, they got, there's 3 left. They got Tulsa, FAU, both should be easy, but then UTSA could be tricky. So I think the reason they're not favored here is the odds makers like, well, the odds of them beating UTSA and SMU back to back, there's a chance they drop one of those. So I think that's what this is. I'm not sure SMU's schedule, but I'm guessing it's a little easier
light.
than Tulane.
Yeah,
It must
light.
be pretty, because I feel like just heads up, Tulane is probably a slightly better team. SMU's only 2 losses, though. We're the Power 5 teams. So SMU's a quality team. And I know UBN's been fading the wave and making money off of that. So I don't think this is the week to fade them, though. Tulsa stinks, and Tulane's back home.
I agree wholeheartedly. I think this is the week that Tulane blows the doors off of Tulsa at home. This is the week they need to make a move. And if you look at what Tulsa is not good at, they're not good at defending the pass. And I think this is the week that Tulane starts to make a move offensively. And Tulane, they can't, if Tulsa can't throw the ball, then they're not going to be able to do anything against Tulane, because they're certainly not going to run the ball against one of the best rushing defenses in football. I'm not just talking about in the AAC. They're certainly the best rushing defense in the AAC. This rushing defense would be able to stop a lot of SEC offenses. I truly believe that. So I've been saying, if you put Tulane's defense with LSU's offense, you'd have a national champion. Can't do that, obviously, but I think we'll learn a lot about this Tulane team this week. And if they can't win big this week, then I'll be with Uncle Big Nick and we'll have coffee together and I'll tell him how right he was. But we'll see. Tulsa at Tulane, 23.5 points. I'm laying the 23.5 for sure. All right, let's move on and talk about the marquee matchups of the weekend. And as we go here, we're going to bring in Gabe Henderson to talk about him as well. Gabe, what's going on?
Hey, what's going on, guys?
We got we I think, last week we were talking about all NFL because of the big weekend of NFL. To me, this weekend is more of a college football kind of weekend. The matchups, especially the two you see on the left-hand side of the screen. We'll get to Browns Ravens later, but Michigan Penn State is truly intriguing because not just of the game itself, but Gabe, how is Michigan going to react after all the chitty chat this week of how they're a bunch of cheaters? And they're going to be talking about that in the locker room.
You had to ask the Astros fan, didn't you?
Oh, that just so happened to happen that way.
I mean, I think, looping the Astros in here, I think you're going to see the same response from Michigan that you saw from the Astros. The Astros went out and won a World Series title. They've continued their dominance ever since then. And I think Michigan will feel the same way. They've got a point to prove that it's not just all cheating that's contributing to their success. And, I think overall they're one of the best football teams in the country. We saw it last year, and I think they're even better this year than they were last. I think they'll come out and they'll just beat the brakes off of Penn State, if we're being honest. I think 5.5 is being generous to a Penn State offense that really struggles to score against good teams.
Spencer, I found it interesting the way Gabe said that cheating thing, almost just kind of dismissed it like, oh, yeah, that little cheating thing. I mean, but it is a big deal amongst the talking heads. I mean, ESPN, I couldn't understand really what they were saying when Stephen A. and Mad Dog Russo were yelling at each other on TV. I literally couldn't understand them. I think they were speaking some foreign language, but they were pretty hot. They were pretty hot and under the collar about it. That's for sure.
Yeah, I think it was Stephen A. I think was the one that was saying Michigan should be banned. It shouldn't even qualify for the postseason. But
that's upsetting.
I mean, it really is, because Michigan's a team that I said it before the season, and I felt like this was, if Michigan's ever gonna break the curse of Jim Harbaugh, this is the year. And I definitely don't see them slipping up this week. I mean, they could very well slip up against Ohio State or in the CFP, but they are not slipping up against freaking Penn State, who, like I said, have a not good offense. I know it's in Happy Valley, but that's not going to matter here. Michigan's going to roll.
Yeah, so Zoe's asking, do we think Penn State's going to lose in Happy Valley? I mean, I don't know that that matters this year. I mean, maybe in some of the years past, I would say yes. But I just think that, Gabe, this is not the same Penn State team that we've seen the past few years. I'm really starting to question James Franklin and his recruiting abilities, to be honest, because they are not getting these big key players. It's kind of like LSU, who used to be DBU, and now they stink at defensive back. Well, Penn State kind of stinks at linebacker. They don't have the greatest linebackers on the planet anymore. Their defense is good, but it's not the same Penn State defense I think that we've been used to seeing, and I really think they might get exploited by Michigan this weekend.
Yeah, actually, I'm going to kind of disagree with you there. I think they're still as good defensively as they have been. I really think what they're seeing now is the luxury that they had in Trace McSorley. The devil is better than the devil you don't know.
That's true.
And I really think Drew Aller he struggles to pass the ball, and I think that's huge. Trace McSorley, maybe we're seeing he wasn't the problem. As far as the Happy Valley thing goes, this game is at 11 a.m. Let's stop acting like there's huge home field advantage at 11 a.m. when everyone's still waking up. I mean, if you make this game a primetime game, 7 o'clock, whiteout game, then we can have a discussion about Happy Valley, but I don't think Michigan will be too phased.
All right, well, I do agree with you. In fact, I just don't think these two teams are even at all. I don't understand the spread. Michigan's been blowing the doors off of people, and the fact that it's Penn State at Happy Valley doesn't change my opinion when I think Michigan's at least a 2. If LSU's a 2-touchdown favorite over Florida, I think Michigan should be a 2-touchdown favorite over Penn State. That's how far off I think this line is. And I get that, we're talking about this cheating scandal. It could be a distraction, but I think Harbaugh's going to use that in his favor. Look, I don't like Michigan, and I don't like Harbaugh at all. I like John Harbaugh. I don't like Jim Harbaugh at all. I never have. Not as a player, not as a coach in the NFL, none of it. And, I hope he loses, and I hope I'm wrong because I'm not betting on it, but I just think Michigan is going to win this game handily. Let's talk about Ole Miss at Georgia, another coach that I dislike very much, and that would be Lane Kiffin. I think Lane Kiffin, Spencer, is one of the most overrated college coaches in college football. Now, he beat LSU, so there you go, and he's done what he's supposed to do this year. They have not choked away the games that they have in the past, but this is an interesting spot for him at Georgia. A chance to prove your mettle, I guess. But Kirby Smart, you know what? He tends to get his teams up for big games, and this is certainly a big game.
Yeah, definitely. And then Lane Kiffin usually doesn't. I mean, he had a chance to beat Alabama this year, didn't do it. Fell flat on offense, and kind of see a similar script for this one. I think Jackson Dart gets stymied by Georgia's defense, and I hope I'm wrong here. I hope Penn State upsets Michigan and Ole Miss upsets Georgia. But if I'm being real here, I don't see either one happening. I would lay the points with both. I think Georgia blows the doors off Ole Miss. Ole Miss, I mean, they almost lost to A&M last week. Yeah, they've been winning, but it's not been pretty. I think they get exposed this week.
I mean, in all honesty, Tulane should beat Ole Miss. I'm not exaggerating at all. I think Tulane was the better football team that day. After that first drive touchdown that Tulane gave up to Ole Miss, Tulane was a better football team. Nick, I don't hate Jim Harbaugh because he coached the Niners, but that doesn't help. I'll just say that. Gabe, Ole Miss, Georgia, what are you looking at?
I think the spread here is about correct. I like Georgia. I think they're going to ultimately win this game. But, we saw Missouri give Georgia a game at home. You talked about earlier how Penn State's defense isn't the same as they have been in the past. I don't think the Georgia defense is the same. I still think they're very, very good, but they're not the impenetrable, unstoppable.
Yeah, I don't disagree with that at all. Yeah.
We've seen. I still think Georgia's one of the best teams in the country, so I think they hang on and win. You mentioned they always get up for these types of games, and Ole Miss just doesn't. I think that'll be the difference. But I think Ole Miss will keep it respectable.
Yeah, and if this were at Ole Miss, I might feel a little bit differently. Obviously, the spread would be a little bit different, probably be 6.5 instead of 10.5. But I just think at Georgia, between the hedges, I got to take the Bulldogs here. All right, before we move on, Browns Ravens are kind of our marquee NFL game of the week by default. I think we all think that the Niners and Jacksonville are probably the game that we're going to be looking at most. But all three of us have that game in our big bucks, so we'll wait to talk about that then. Browns Ravens. This line has moved more towards the Ravens, and I think it's kind of the Ravens, and I said this before, so maybe it was just a week early with it, but I think they're the flavor of the week. I mean, they're this week's best team in the NFL. Every week, I mean, we're in week 10. I think I've heard 6 different teams be the best team in the NFL, Spencer. This week, it's the Ravens. I guess it wouldn't shock me if they beat the Browns bad, but I think the Browns, after they played that first game with Dorian Robinson and just kind of got smoked in Cleveland, I think this division game, I think they play well. I don't think they win the game, but I do think they play well to keep it close. And I think it's a very low-scoring game. I like the under.
For sure. Yeah, I'm with you on I think it's going to be close, but I think it might actually be I don't want to say a shootout, but with Deshaun Watson back, I could see these teams trading blows. I mean, Deshaun Watson, Lamar Jackson going at it. I think it'll be a pretty close back and forth game. I definitely don't see it being a blowout. Now, I've been on the Ravens since the preseason. They were one of my preseason favorites, had their over on wins, picked them to go to the Super Bowl. I've been consistent with liking the Ravens. They're definitely not a flavor of the week for me. And this week, it's like, I don't know. I don't really like them in this spot. I think they'll be able to win, but I think the Browns keep this thing close. I think Deshaun Watson has a lot to prove, and don't know if he'll be able to upset them, but I definitely think Lamar's going to have to do all he can do. This will be, for some people saying Lamar Jackson for MVP.
Oh, give me a break.
I mean, this is a chance for him to prove that against a really good Cleveland defense, but we'll have to see. I'm not confident in them covering that 6.5. That's for sure.
I've said this before, and I'll say it again. The Ravens will never win a title. They'll never even win an AFC championship with Lamar Jackson as their quarterback. He runs better than any quarterback that I've ever seen, and that includes some incredibly gifted running quarterbacks. But when it comes down to it, and in big games, I've never seen him do anything that impresses me in throwing the football. And he might win this game, Gabe, but I mean, let's be real. Lamar Jackson is not, to me, not an elite quarterback.
I wouldn't go that far. I'm not going to say he's MVP caliber this year, but I don't think you can rule him out of the elite conversation. As far as this game goes, I'm going to agree with you, though, Jim. I think, I think it's going to be low scoring. You talked about the Ravens being the flavor of the week. I won't go that far. I'm not going to say they're the best team in the NFL just because I don't like to throw that phrase around every week, but I will go as far as to say these are two of the best defenses in the league.
That's true.
I think we're going to see those on display on Sunday. This game's going to be a lot closer than the last one was in Cleveland, but it's one I'm just not touching. I think the Ravens win. I think it'll be close, though.
5 seconds from either one of you. What's the last big postseason game the Ravens won?
Probably back in the Joe Flacco
days. Exactly. You don't even have to say what game it was. That would be in the Superdome, by the way. All right, we're going to move on and talk about big bucks. Thomas did not make it in. He had another appointment that he had to be at, so he will not be here, and that's a shame because we'll miss him wearing the turkey hat. He was the turkey of the week, the only one in red this week. As a team, we did fantastic, guys, which makes up for the not so fantastic week we had before. The Gurus climbed all the way into green for the season. That is incredible.
Yes.
He was in the 8. The first one was an 8 a couple of weeks ago. So he said 2 really good weeks. Spencer has Gabe Henderson. Can't call him giblets this week. Plus 68. And we're going to go in order from worst to first. So I'll just read out Thomas's picks this week. He's got some interesting ones. He's got that 3-team teaser in here, which I find it's kind of plays on a couple of the ones that we're talking about later on. We both have Buffalo and Dallas as part of a bet. Spencer and I do. Buffalo minus 1.5 in a teaser. Dallas minus 11 now. That was minus 17. That moved from minus 7 to minus 17 a little bit earlier today. And then Arizona. I would have loved to have asked him why he thinks Arizona belongs in a teaser. We'll talk about that pick, I think, in a little bit. And then a couple of the other plays. He's got Houston, the college football Houston Cougars against Cincinnati. He's got Houston as a minus 2.5 over Cincinnati. I would have loved to ask him about that as well. And then you see his other picks here on the screen. All right, we're going to move on. Guru is next, and talk a little bit about your picks.
All right, yeah, I got another total this week for my best bet, Giants and Cowboys. And it's mainly because the Giants are just so bad on offense with Daniel Jones done. I mean, I don't see them scoring more than 10. In Dallas, I think will have such a big lead to where they'll just probably call off the dogs toward the end. I don't even see Daxie in the field in the fourth quarter. So I like the under with that. And I got a money line parlay this week. I was thinking about doing a teaser, but it turned out the money line parlay was the same price. So I did that there with the Seahawks over the Commanders. I think they get back in the win column this week at home. And then the Bengals over the Texans. Sorry, Gabe. I think C.J. Stroud will keep that thing close. Didn't feel comfortable laying the 7 with the Bengals, but feel like Joe Burrow will find a way for them to keep their winning streak going. And then I got the Falcons, y'all. Y'all can hate me for it, but I got the Falcons in here. It's just, I mean, Kyler Murray hadn't played football now in about a year, and I feel like he's going to be very rusty here. Plus, the Cardinals' defense freaking stinks. I've been saying it, but I think this will finally be the week Arthur Smith wakes up and unleashes Bijan. So I'll take the Falcons there to cover. And then the Vikings money line, got to do it. Sorry, Saints fans. I just don't see the Saints coming through
Saints
here.
fans are with you. You don't have to say sorry, Saints fans. I think they're going to be betting with you.
Yeah, I mean, I would. I just don't see it being pretty. I see it kind of being similar to last year's Saints-Vikings game. I think it'll be a close game. I don't see the Saints getting their clocks cleaned, but yeah, new Call of Duty. Yeah, Kyler Murray. I don't trust that guy whenever Call of Duty comes out. Then my parlay got the Niners. I think the Niners with Chase Young there. I think their defense bounces back. I know they're on the road, but I think they get it done against Jacksonville. And then the Bills, it was 7.5. Paid the extra juice there to get it at 7 just in case, but I think they win fairly easily this week against the Fighting Sean Payton Broncos, who I think come back to earth after their big win over the Chiefs.
All right, you're going to see a common theme with a couple of these picks in here, which really worries the hell out of me that we're all on the same side of some of these picks. I mean, like, truly. And one of them is, I'm just going to jump to Falcons Cardinals. I don't understand this line at all. The Cardinals are clearly the second worst team in the NFL. You can make an argument that they're worse than the Giants. I don't care that Kyler Murray's coming back. He doesn't make that much of a difference. Does he even care? Why is he coming back is my question. And do you think the Cardinals want to win? No. They want to tank. They want to lose. They want to get the first pick of the draft. They stink. They want to stink. And the Falcons, I think, are going to come back with a vengeance after last week. I love the Falcons -1.5. I would have put more on it had I not made my bet of the year, this 3-team moneyline parlay, which was even money a couple of days ago, and it keeps creeping up because these lines keep changing. These money lines keep changing. This morning, it was -105, and then about an hour ago, it moved to -110, or maybe a couple hours ago, but still -110. But still, love it. $44. I got on Cincinnati to beat Houston, Seattle to beat Washington. And I threw Dallas in there to beat the Giants because it moved it from -125 to -105 when I first put it in. So that's why I put it in there. And then you see my teaser. I'm 3 out of my last 4 in the teasers. I got New England getting 7.5 from Indy. Look, the Fighting Belichicks are in desperate times, and they don't usually get blown out by bad teams, and I consider Indianapolis to be a bad team. I'm not sure they're going to win this game. I think New England will win, but I don't think they're going to get blown out across the pond in Germany. And then Buffalo, like you guys, I like Buffalo on Monday night getting 1.5. 49ers, I think they show why that some people think they were the flavor of the week a few weeks ago. Given 3 of the Jags, I think they beat the heck out of the Jaguars. This Jaguars team that at home lost by 20 to the Houston Texans at home just a few weeks ago. And then lastly, this is a complete contrarian pick. Everybody loves the Lions this week, so I'm just going to take the Chargers. It's an insta pick. All right, Thomas actually has made it, and we can't pass that up. He's got the turkey hat on. I mean, you got to. We just had a great week last week, so that's all.
Yeah, listen, I lost 2 games. I had one team up 27-7 entering the 4th. They blew it. And then I lost another game by a half point because the kicker got hurt. It's just been, last year college basketball season, every tip, every ball went my way. It's going opposite football. So the fade train is here. Let's see what we got this week. I'm going to take Virginia Tech over Boston College on the money line. I think Boston College has gotten a few wins here, but they've had a very easy schedule. I think Virginia Tech's starting to play well, so I'm going to take them on the road. That's a big sharp play, so we'll see if I'm on the right side. I think Air Force blasts Hawaii. If you watched Air Force last week, Army was one of my few winners this season, but when those academy teams play, throw it out the window. I mean, you never know what's going to happen there, but I think Air Force gets back on track. I like Houston at home against a struggling Cincinnati team. This is in college football. They play in the pros too, but it'd be a competitive game, but I think Houston can cover the 2.5. If history is any indicator, Houston will win that game by 2. So if you can bet that, that's probably the bet to make. And the Steelers -3 over the Packers. This is a Packer fade. I'm not buying this team at all. I think they're terrible, and I think the Steelers get it done at home. And then I took a teaser. I took the Arizona +7.5. I don't think the Falcons can beat anybody by a touchdown. I think Buffalo rebounds at home against Denver. And name your score with the Cowboys this week. Coming off a loss and getting Danny DeVito at quarterback, I mean, you can forget about it. They're going to blow them out, but I put that in the teaser, get it down to 11 and maybe eliminate a backdoor cover.
I found your fade of Atlanta interesting. We were just talking about it. I don't know if you heard us talking about it or not, but I just don't understand the whole I just not sure Kyler Murray is going to care. And Arizona clearly has played like they wanted to tank. I think trading Josh Dobbs shows that they want to tank. This is a weird spot for me. What led you to say, I think Atlanta stinks that much that I'm going to trust Arizona with 7.5 points here?
Yeah, I just think it's going to be a close game between two bad teams, to be honest with you. I don't think, Atlanta had that tough loss last week, and then they go on the road where they haven't been good at all. So I think you're looking at, a rock fight. I don't expect it to be a very exciting game. I think you're going to see a lot of field goals. And I just think that the Cardinals can keep that with a quarterback that can play a little bit at least. You bring in. We'll see. I mean, listen. Maybe we talked about it in production meeting, Jim. We heard the coach talk 5 minutes about not giving Bijan the ball, and we still don't understand why he's not getting the ball. So we'll see if he gets it more this week. But I lean this being a close game.
I think what Thomas is saying is if you play DFS, maybe it's the week to use Young Wei too. So if you like kickers,
he's been good this year. Yeah, I got him in our league, Jim. He's been a good kicker for me.
No doubt about it. All right. Let's move on to the champion from the giblets to the gravy. Gravy Henderson is 4-1 last week with his +68. What you got for us this week?
Yeah, you guys have already gone over the 2 picks in my teaser. I'm eliminating the backdoor cover just like Thomas with Dallas -11. I don't think that'll be a particularly high-scoring game. I like Buffalo to rebound at home against Denver. Packers and Steelers, once again, as Thomas said, fading the Packers, really. I think they're just not good offensively. They're really struggling. They've gone over just 3 times this year, and then the Steelers have only gone over once. They're 2 bottom half offenses in the league with 2 top half defenses. So I think that's just going to be an ugly, low-scoring football game. Speaking of ugly, low-scoring football games, Iowa-Rutgers. I took them last week when they had a historic under. Now we're under 27.5. which would close as the lowest total in sports betting history. Iowa has played 4 games with historic over-unders in the last 2 games. The under is 3-0 in those games. Iowa's gone under 22 points in their last 3, and I think this is the week they could keep it up. Neither of these offenses is particularly great. That's putting it nicely, and they've got 2 stout defenses. Northwestern, Wisconsin under 42. I'm loving the unders this week. Wisconsin's down to their second quarterback. Northwestern struggled offensively. They scored 7 points against Iowa last week. I think this is just going to be another Big Ten West ugly football game. I'm not touching the outcome of this, so I like the under. And then I'm with you on 49ers Jags. San Francisco's healthy coming off a bye. They're 5-0 in their last 5 against Jacksonville. And Jacksonville has really struggled. 3-17 straight up, 0-5 against the spread in their last games against the NFC West. So I really like this spot for the 49ers to flex their muscles.
Like the Saints, the Jacksonville Jaguars have been better away from home than they have been at home. They are winners. They have the longest winning streak in the NFL right now. The longest current winning streak in the NFL at 5 games. I think that ends this week. I'm with you. We'll see how it goes, and we'll see whether we'll be calling you gravy or giblets as Thanksgiving gets a little bit closer. All right, I want to get everyone's thoughts here before we go off today. Saints, Vikings. We already know Spencer he's already got it in his best bet, so he clearly likes the Vikings here. Gabe, what do you think, Saints, Vikings?
I like the under in this game. Sticking with my theme from Big Bucks. I just don't think Minnesota's going to be able to produce what they did last week offensively. I think this is a good bounce back spot for the Saints defense. Good get right and going into the bye week. Ultimately, I think the Saints win though.
Thomas.
Yeah, I'm with Gabe. I like a lower scoring game here. No Justin Jefferson back yet. Hawkinson's beat up. The tackles beat up. For the Vikings got a lot of injuries on offense. So I think if you control Jordan Addison, you can keep their scoring opportunities down. I like the under, and I think the spread's pretty close here. I think the Saints win a close game. I think it'll be tight in the fourth quarter, but I think again it's going to be one of those ugly lower scoring games.
This almost made my card. I really think the Saints win big. And when I say big, I mean by more than a touchdown. I've been saying all week that, people are down on them, and average Joe Blow fan is feeling the same way. I'm not even talking about average Joe Blow Saints fan. I'm talking about average Joe Blow better across the country. All they saw was the Saints stinking it up against the Bears. And even some of the sharps I listened to, it was clear that they didn't really even watch the game. They were just going by what they saw in the Saints. I'm not blaming them for not watching what was a really bad football game, by the way. But I think the Saints play one of their better games of the year. I like what I heard in the locker room last week. I like what I've been hearing all week long. And I think the Saints go to Minnesota and shake off some of those demons. 14-4 of the Vikings against the Saints in Minneapolis. That's not very good. Spencer, since we skipped over you, it was in your best bets. You can give me your your final thought first.
Okay, yeah, I'm kind of on the opposite end of this. I hope you're all right for the sake of Saints fans, but I'm gonna go Vikings 27, Saints 23. I think it'd be a little higher scoring game than the total indicates, and I think Dobbs will find a way to keep the magic going.
It's a good thing that's not in your best bets, because you and Thomas might have to trade headgear. We'll see. I don't know.
Well, the good news, guys, is I originally had the 49ers in my best bets, and then I took them out. So you talk about the lock of the decade.
Yeah, no kidding.
On the 49ers. That's easy money.
Wow, man, that would have been really bad. I was texting them earlier saying, man, I don't know if I like this or not. We'll have to see. All right, it's been an interesting show. We thank you for joining us an hour earlier if you're with us live. If not, and you're watching us on demand, doesn't matter when you watch. And you know what? You can, if you subscribe to the Bayou Bets YouTube channel, you can always find out when we're going on live, and you can always find us afterwards. Subscribe to the Bayou Bets YouTube channel just by giving us a little click. You can like us too. You can like the show if you want. That helps out as well. And a final reminder, Caesars Sportsbook is the official odds partner of bet.nola.com. Tomorrow morning at 10 a.m., Larry Holder of The Athletic will be with me as we give our final Saints predicted scores. You know what I think already. I'll give you a score. Larry will give his thoughts, and we'll talk about week 10 in the NFL as well. And then we'll be back next Monday as the Saints go into their bye week. We thank everyone. Oh, wait, you know what? There was one thing I wanted to do before we went off here. And Zoe has been behind the scenes for quite a while with us now. And Zoe, you're going to take on a different role in the company. You won't be with us as much.
No.
And we're going to miss you.
I'm going to miss y'all, but I'm only a phone call away. I'll happily still annoy all of you.
When we start talking about LSU women's odds as we go down, you're going to have to make a guest appearance.
Happily. It's been fun. I learned a lot, and you guys are going to do great without me. I feel like, you guys are spreading your wings and you're going to fly away.
Well, it's going to be hard for Thomas to fly with that thing on his head, but who knows? We'll do our best. All right. It's been fun. We will miss you for sure. And again, it won't be long before you're coming back as college basketball gets rolling, women's college basketball. Oh, yeah. We're going to wrap up the show. Everyone have a wonderful weekend. Oh, and we didn't even give a prediction, but make sure you watch Panthers Bears. I mean, you can't get enough of games like that in prime time on Amazon Prime. Panthers Bears. That's what Amazon paid for.
Get extra sleep ahead of Datitude.
Exactly. For Zoe, for Thomas, for Gabe, for Spencer, I'm Jim. We will see you tomorrow on Dat and here back on Bayou Bets on Monday. Everyone, enjoy yourselves. Talk to you later.